शोभिनी सुहासिनी सुमधुर भाषिणी सुखदां वरदां मातरं वन्दे मातरं वन्दे मातरम्.
Thank you. It gives me great pleasure to welcome all the members who have come here, all the panelists and the chief guests who have come here for this meet. The webinar is on FDI in manufacturing, opportunities and challenges, and it is a case of Karnataka. And I welcome our chief guest who will be joining us by 12 o'clock, Shri Gaurav Gupta, Principal Secretary, Government of Karnataka. Precious time from his busy schedule to join this webinar. Welcome you, sir. FDI is incomplete without Shri Deepak Bagla, guest of honor for our program, CEO Invest India. Welcome you, sir. Shri Revannagowda, MD of Udyog Mitra, is also joining us. Welcome you, sir. Warm welcome to our panelists. Representing the focus sector, Shri Vikram Gulati, Senior Vice President, Toyota Kirloskar Motors, Shri MC Dinesh, Past President, FKCCI, and Shri Nikhila HS, President, BMT-MN. Welcome you, sir. Welcome you, sir. I also welcome Shri Anil Sharmaji, Eminent Economist and BVSS National Advisory Board, for his presence in the webinar. Shri Economic Advisor, BVSS, is also present. I welcome both of you, sir. I welcome all the members of the BVSS team and the most important, the participants who have joined us for the webinar. I welcome each one of you for this webinar. I request Navalji to please introduce BVSS.
Well, thank you, Radhika ji. And once again, before starting, I would like to wish all of you a very happy Navratri from Team BVSS Bangalore. And I pray that may Ma Shailputri bless all of us today, given that Navratris have started. So once again, good morning to all respected dignitaries in the panel and our august audience, which is spanning across Bangalore, Karnataka, and not only Bangalore and Karnataka, but other parts of India. We have registrations for this program from the neighboring countries as well. We have audience which is not only finance professionals, but also industry representation from many big corporates, including and we also have MSMEs attending this program. So I welcome you all. My greetings to all the BVSS colleagues from the Bangalore chapter, dignitaries from the advisory board. Anil Sharma ji is there already. Avnish Mata ji is also listening to this program. And we have other colleagues from BVSS Delhi chapter who have joined this program. We have also been joined by two special guests, Professor Lingamurthy from Central University of Karnataka, and also Northern Regional Council Chairman ICAI, Shri Shashank Agarwal. So I welcome you both. Now coming to the topic, friends, at the heart of every strong nation are the values and the financial or economic rigor of that particular country. Now at BVSS, we have created this platform for finance professionals, which is including chartered accountants, company secretaries, cost and work accountants, economists, bankers, chief executive officers, CXO group, board of directors, to come together and contribute in the nation building through the values of enriched professionalism, integral humanism, and cultural nationalism. Our Bangalore Dialogue series is one such step. And I think my colleagues will give a little bit of more detail as we go along this program. But what I would like to highlight is that the last Bangalore Dialogue happened in July, where Mr. Mohandas Pai, Shri Gopal Krishna Agarwal, who is the national spokesperson for BJP, and Professor G. Ramesh, who is from IIM Bangalore dealing with government policy, they had joined, and we had a lot of deliberation upon Atmanirbhar Bharat. And this is the second dialogue where we have picked up the theme to talk about FDI in manufacturing, and specifically for Karnataka. Although we'll talk about the overall India also, but we'll specifically focus on the Karnataka situation. BVSS Bangalore has its own activities. We have an economic think tank which is doing this program. We also have our CXO group, which is being done under BVSS Corporate Governance Program. We have a BVSS Bangalore Members Club, which deals with contemporary issues of professionals related to whether regulatory changes or course curriculum or skill development. We have a finance literacy program for non-finance people, especially the policymaker and the journalists, the key decision makers in the organizations, and also the investor education. And we also have a BVSS Nation First program, where we do a lot of social integrity, values, and positive way of living related topic discussions. And we have BVSS Women Inspiration program as well. So with these themes, BVSS Bangalore is progressing one by one. This program is being done by Economic Think Tank. And I think there cannot be a more relevant topic in today's scenario than the topic that has been taken under discussion. Friends, if we talk about capital goods sector for manufacturing destinations in India, Bangalore is the topmost destination for the machine tools, as is evident in various surveys and studies. And if we see, the capital goods sector is expected to grow around 7%, which is five-year CAGR. 100% of FDI is already allowed in this through automatic route, and there is no industrial license required. It's free. The foreign direct investment is under automatic rule, means that only information is required to be given to RBI. We don't need to take any approval. And in the import policy also, we don't have any import license required. In expatriation policy, liberal work visa regime is there. So these are some examples. And then on taxation side, the corporate taxes are 25% for the new units, and the import duty is maximum 10%. To my understanding, and the general import duty is 7.5%, GST being 18%. With these statistics and information, what I'm trying to highlight is government has already tried to put a lot of focus in this sector and try to make it very easy for the entrepreneurs to take it forward. Similarly, if we look at automotive sector for India, India is the 4th largest automotive market in the world. It is the 5th largest auto producing nation also. The overall vehicle sales grew by 5%, and it was majorly contributed by commercial vehicles in last year, which grew by 17.55%, if I'm not wrong. And the auto exports of the last year, they have grown by 14.5%. Now, with these kind of figures, we can just imagine how much important it is to address or to keep in focus the automotive industry of India. And this was the reason primarily why we have taken for today's discussion 2 important sectors. One is automotive sector and auto components, and second is machine tools and engineering for the discussion. And I invite all of you to contribute in this discussion. And as we go, you can share your comments and inputs, and we'll take it forward. Now, to conclude my address, I encourage each one of us to come forward and help society in resolving today's worrying problems. Whatever the problems are there, we will have to come together and resolve them jointly. And I, as a president of BVSS Bangalore, invite all of you to join us, to contribute, and wherever we can support you, we'll try to support you. With this note, I'll now give it back to Radhika.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Navalji. India has got be the manufacturing hub of the world, but most of the potential is untapped. And for this, capital good industry development is most important, which is the machine tools and the engineering sector. The most important driver for both of them being the user industry is the automobile sector. So we thought that it is important to bring all these three sectors together to see what are the challenges, to know what are the challenges that these sectors are facing and what are the opportunities that is there in this sector for FDI investment. And probably we can identify the sectors that require FDI investments to come in the form of higher technology, which is going to help these three sectors. So keeping all this in mind, we thought that this is the most appropriate topic to be talked about in for today. So I now pass on for Chetanji for moderation of this session. Chetan Venugopalji is a chartered accountant by profession, and he's the co-founder of Eminent Services Private Limited, India-based leading professional service company with expertise in the area of business consultancy, digitally driven outsourcing service in finance, accountancy, HR, and business processes. His company is also operating in Singapore, UAE, and North America. He is an independent director on board the Indian Railways Finance Corporation Limited, the funding arm of the Indian Railways, and also the chairman of Audit Committee and the chairman of CSR Committee. Over to Chetanji.
Thank you, Radhika ji. Thank you so much, and good morning and namaskara to all of you. It's indeed my privilege to host today's discussion on FDI in manufacturing with a special focus on Karnataka. So we have today amongst us a very illustrious panelists representing both the government, that is both Government of India and Government of Karnataka, as well as some of the industry leaders from specific sectors like the automobile, as well as engineering and machine tools. And we also have a leader from the industry body, Mr. Dinesh. So indeed, I'm very hopeful that we'll have a very interesting discussions today. In terms of the schedule for today, we are going to begin with a talk by Shri Deepak Bagla. Mr. Deepak Bagla would be speaking about the FDI investment in India and also specifically focus on the manufacturing sector, what the government has been doing in order to ensure that the manufacturing sector is picking up. Following that particular talk would be what originally it was scheduled that Mr. Gaurav Gupta ji, IAS, would be speaking to us and giving us insights into what the government of Karnataka has been doing in terms of initiatives to promote Karnataka in terms of manufacturing sector. He would be, unfortunately, is not able to join us on time, but he has promised that he will join us around noon. So we will definitely get him in to talk about the initiatives that the government of Karnataka is taking. So after Mr. Bagla's talk, we will get into a panel discussion with all the panelists today. And then we will have a short break when Mr. Gaurav Gupta is expected to join. We will break and have Mr. Gaurav Gupta talk to us about the initiatives in Karnataka, and then follow it up again with the discussion. So we're expecting the overall panel discussion to be for about 50 minutes. And subsequently, we will have a summary of the whole discussions by Radhika ji, and then the vote of thanks. This is how we have structured the today's session. So as you all understand, manufacturing sector is the engine of growth. You know, it is most critical for job creation and for exports. And today, the manufacturing sector is contributing about 18% of our GDP. And Government of India has been taking very many steps in the last 5 to 6 years to give a real serious boost to the manufacturing sector in India. And its flagship program, the Make in India, which has been the vision of our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi ji, where as per the Make in India initiative, the government would like to see our manufacturing sector actually to contribute about 25% of our GDP by 2025, and also create about 100 million jobs for the next 3 to 4 years. So this is the big vision that the government has been undertaking. Besides that, as we all know, in the last 5 to 6 years, several initiatives have been taken by Government of India, be it sector-specific policies, be it ensuring that the ease of doing business in the country is much better today when you look at it. The World Bank report, as you're all aware, India has come in at the 63rd position today, jumping almost 79 places in the last 5 to 6 years, making a huge thrust on infrastructure, be it road, railways, ports, power, also a lot of labor loss, this thing, and also creating specific corridors for industrial development. So clearly there has been a major thrust by Government of India to ensure that manufacturing sector is getting the right place in our economy. Besides that, today, as we all know, the pandemic has also created a great opportunity, and the world is really in a fix in terms of the global supply chain. And many companies who are currently using China as their manufacturing base have been thinking about creating an alternative base to the China, that is China plus one policy. And I understand that almost 1,000 companies across the globe are currently situated in China, are looking at shifting a significant part of their operations to other locations. And India has a great potential to take advantage of this shift that's happening. But today, as we know, it's more the countries like the Vietnam, the Bangladesh, who have got the head start today. But I'm sure our government is doing enough to have these companies to set up shop. Having said that, we already hear a lot of companies have taken decisions because of special financial incentives that the government is now providing them. So we see a lot of positive things coming out of it. Now I'd request Mr. Deepak Bagla to share more about all of the initiatives that the government is taking to ensure that India is really benefiting out of these situations. Before I request Mr. Deepak Bagla to come, I take this opportunity to introduce, it's indeed my pleasure to introduce Mr. Deepak Bagla today. Mr. Deepak Bagla has had an outstanding professional career for over 3 decades, starting with the World Bank in Washington, DC. In 1989, he joined Citibank Global Corporate and Investment Banking team and held several responsibilities across Europe, Africa, Asia, and Australia. In 2007, he joined private equity to start an India-dedicated fund for core infrastructure. Mr. Bagla, Managing Director and CEO of Invest India, the National Investment Promotion and Facilitation Agency promoted by Government of India. Invest India is also the execution agency for Government of India's startup initiative. Mr. Bagla has a bachelor's degree in honors in economics from St. Stephen's College, New Delhi, and dual master in international diplomacy and international trade and finance from the School of Foreign Service, Georgetown University, Washington, DC. It's indeed our privilege, Mr. Bagla. I request you to please start the.
Thank you, Chetan. Thank you for inviting me. And I must compliment you, the entire BVSS team, and Naval and all of you for organizing this. I think it is very important. It's a very topical subject you've touched upon. And I was also interested when I was hearing Naval saying the scale of activities which BVSS has been doing. So I really must commend you. And Ma'am Radhika, thank you for heading the economic chapter. You know, economics has always been close to my heart ever since school and college. So it is something which I would say is very critical. But thank you, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Chetan had mentioned to me that first to share some experiences of what is happening on FDI on a country level and what is happening. So I thought I'll do that. And let me give you a quick introduction on Invest India. It's a young team. We're just about 48, 60 months old when this Prime Minister wanted a dedicated team to be the investment promotion agency of a country. You know, it's ironical that all the countries in the world, and especially if you look at the top 25 FDI destinations of the world, have a dedicated investment promotion agency. Ironically, one country which could have been marked as one of the most complex did not have one until 60 months ago. So it was only Prime Minister Modi, when he came into power, that he said, and he realized that this has to be set up, and it has been set up. We have 4 verticals. The first is investment promotion and facilitation, where for all investments, domestic and foreign, we handhold the investor completely. We show them the opportunity, help them with the business plan, get them a partner, get them location, get them all approvals from the government, and handhold them even after they've started the business, whatever problems they have. A part of this is that, for example, the FDI policy, the industrial policy, a lot of the work is done by the team. We work very closely with the state governments. So, you know, the facilitation agencies in the state governments like the Udyog, Mitras, etc. We are setting them up in a number of states, you know, that entire ease of doing business thing. We are training them. We are bringing global best practices. And just to let you know how fast India is doing, so we are a startup in many ways of the government of India. And in a short period of effectively 48 months, Invest India has now been rated as the world's #1 investment promotion agency by the global agencies, including UNCTAD. So you'll be happy to see how India is changing that fast. The second is the Startup India. So we are the execution arm for Startup India, as Chetan mentioned. The third is the Prime Minister's Science and Technology Initiative, which is under Professor Vijay Raghavan. So we are the execution arm for that. And there's a program also called AGNI, AGNII, Accelerated Growth of New India Innovation, where we pick up innovation and fast track it to get it commercialization. And I'll tell you why that is important. And I must leave a statistic with you here that in the past 50 months, we've opened over 1,000 R&D centers in India of global multinationals. India today is the #1 destination for global multinationals having their R&D centers outside of their head office. It is a very big development. Please remember that. And you know, Karnataka has also had several of these R&D centers opening there. But this is a very big move which has happened. And we've seen that taking strong momentum during the past 50 months. And why I'm saying it is critical is it's not just because it's job providing. It's not also just because it establishes India as the think tank of the world globally. But more importantly, it has a number of external impacts to it. From R&D gets out a lot of huge impact on every other sector of the economy. And the last part is we have the project management group, which was under the cabinet secretary earlier. This is where large projects are monitored by the senior most office themselves to see that their execution is on time. And it is now with Invest India where we manage that. Now, to give you a very quick perspective in the next 5 minutes as to what has happened during this period of the virus. As I see it, this little virus is now going to change and impact not only our personal lives, not only the country as a whole, but our entire world in many ways. And a large part of that is going to be impacted on manufacturing, because that is what we are discussing today, including every other aspect. So before I see what has happened, and it's about 200 odd days we can see into the most unprecedented lockdown ever in human history, just before we went into this lockdown, let us see what had happened. 30th of March, our end of financial closure year. We closed this year with FDI of $74 billion. It's the highest ever FDI we've received in our history. Let me tell you some interesting things to it. 92 to 93% of this came in the open route. Chetan, you mentioned the automatic route. It did not require any specific government approvals. Today, we are one of the most open economies on the planet, with the private sector having the ability to play a role in each and every sector of my economy. And that is where the Atmanirbhar Bharat comes in. That the strength of our manufacturing is so strong that this is where we want the world to partner with us and to come up with solutions, not just for India, but for the entire world. And that is where our strengths are going to come to fore. The second part of the 74 billion, over 40% of the 74 billion is in greenfield investment. You know, for the first time, the global investor is comfortable in taking a long-term call on India. Very important. And please remember, now we are ranked as one of the top greenfield FDI destinations in the world. And why was this happening? It was happening because, one, we are the largest opportunity. You know, we'll be 1.5 billion by 2025. I don't think there'll be any other country, at least for the next 100 years, that within one national geography, you'll have 1.5 billion customers. So we are the largest. The second is we were the fastest growing. We were the fastest growing large economy just by the 30th of March, as you remember it all. And if you look at the statistics which have just come out by IMF and the World Bank report, India is expected to be 8.8% growth in 2021. So very quickly, we are all set to take up back our position of being the fastest growing large economy in the next 12 to 24 months. We were the youngest, average age 29. We will be the youngest nation in the world, all the way at least till 2080. That means we have a quick run of 60, 70 years. Very important again, because the younger you are, the dependency ratio is low. Radhika ji will explain it further for us later. That means there are more people in the working environment than the ones who are dependent on the economy. So there are more contributors. And why am I saying all this? Why I'm telling you these three very strong imperatives why the global investors are today looking at India. And you mentioned some of the other countries which are getting the benefits, and I will want to correct that one, Chetanji. The imperatives of India now are so strong. That is why I'm seeing that huge rush of investments coming. In fact, as we speak today, my team is hand-holding 578 investors with a total indicated investment of $68 billion, of which 25 has already come. And this story has just begun. We are at that inflection point where India is concerned. We are, in my mind, at the most interesting and important inflection point in our history. And when I say that, it is not just modern Indian history, but history for the past 1,000 years. You are at that bottom end of the hockey stick, right, ready to take off on that vertical side. And the entire world recognizes it. Now, let me tell you what has happened during these past 200 days. One of the things which this virus has done is that it has accelerated and amplified some of the underlying trends which were already there in the system. You remember, we all wanted to de-risk our businesses. Over the past 2 decades, you saw supply chains getting concentrated in 1 or 2 geographic countries, primarily being driven by only a cost initiative, not just as much by quality. Everybody was looking to diversify that. And now with this virus, everybody's realized the vulnerability of concentrated supply chains and are now very actively looking to move those supply chains and move them closer to where the market is. You remember when I told you why I say India is strong? Because that basic imperative of being the largest market. And mind you, this is a market where by 2040, 90% of India is slated to be in the middle class. We are going to be an onion-shaped system. We are not a pyramid any longer. That shows the strength where manufacturing as an opportunity comes in for India. So that part gets established well. And that is where today I'm seeing a huge increase in the number of business requests which have come to me. By the way, in the past 15 months, I've done close to 200,000 business requests from 119 countries across 47 sectors. And I'm only talking of manufacturing here because we are discussing manufacturing here. The number of business queries have gone up exponentially in the past 220 days. And a point of that is that I'm going to do a 2x and a 3x of my own team in the next 90 to 120 days to be able to meet these requests. And the requests today are very different. They are no longer that, is this a place of opportunity in India? Everybody is now coming and saying, please show us where is the land where we can go, help us set it up faster. So what has this government done in the past 220 days? I told you we were the largest market. We were the fastest growing. We were the youngest. These are very strong imperatives for any investor globally and locally. The 4th pillar now has been added onto it, and which is where the Honorable Prime Minister has said, I want to make India as one of the easiest places to do business. You mentioned about the ease of doing business rankings and the jump. Even the World Bank president said, Mr. Chetan, it's the most unprecedented jump ever by any large economy. And let me tell you what has happened in these past 200 days, where the government has set in all processes to make it the easiest. One, A single window is being created under the cabinet secretary. That means any proposal which comes in goes into the single window, all the other, it's an empowered group of secretaries, and they get all the approvals there and then. We Invest India as the secretariat for that. The second thing, which was just launched by a month and a half ago, one of my colleagues is on this platform as we speak, his name is Dushyant, where we already launched a portal where you can see all land availability across the country. We have a few states which are already mapped onto it. You can go down to that plot and see the benefits and what is the title of that plot, how do you apply for it. So that entire thing where everybody said that they can't understand where the land is available, it's all now there in the open in a transparent manner. The third thing, and which is again very important, in each department of the Government of India, a separate project development cell has been set up. Invest India as a part of each one of them. What does this project development cell do? It has two parts. One is it helps every investor when they are coming into India, getting them approval, showing them opportunity, etc., etc. The second most important, and Radhika, you will like this one, is where they will create ready-made projects with all approvals and all in that SPV and keep it ready to bid out either to the public sector or to a PPP or to the private sector. So you know what we are doing here is we are de-risking projects, getting all approvals done and getting them ready on the shelf. That means project execution will become much faster. By the way, I must tell you that I had a world's largest wind power company. They came into India. And I remember they were sitting in my office and we had asked them, and they wanted to put up a factory to put up a blade in India. You know, that blade of the turbines, the wind turbines. And they wanted to create the largest blade in India. So I just walked into the room and team was sitting with them, and they are in about 12 or 13, 18 countries, sorry, yes. So the team had asked them that where was it you had your best experience? That means from the day your board gave approval to the day your first blade comes out manufactured. So means everything included in that time. So they said they had it in one of our neighboring countries where they did it in 18 months. My team said, we'll do it better. And you know in how much it was done? 14 months, 23 days. And I remember the best thing is when I got a call from the chief secretary of that state and said, Mr. Bagla, we did it. You have one of the world's largest solar parks being set up, 648 megawatts in under 8 months. These are the stories of new India. You can hold on to the past ones. And this is where the Udyog Mitras we have in Karnataka and all the other states, they are the ones which are doing the heavy lifting and making it happen on a day. So now you see when that capital utilization, instead of it taking 5 or 6 years, is now being done into 14 months, you can see the return on those projects going up significantly. The IRRs go up. That is what makes India more competitive. So I told you about the PDCs, which is happening. Now comes a very interesting thing. I mentioned to you that now everybody is looking to move their supply chains to India. So, you know, we had this linked incentives, production linked incentive schemes, which are now being introduced by the government. The interesting thing of these schemes, and by the way, the interesting thing of this government, is that all schemes which are being created are being done by extensive stakeholder interaction. That means they are very relevant to the stakeholder, and that is those elements are being brought in. And I'll give you 2 examples on this. You had the production link scheme for electronics. And you remember 31st July was the last date for companies to apply for that scheme. In those 72 hours before 31st July, every major company in the world in electronics, you name it, applied to it. They may be the manufacturers for Apple, they may be the manufacturers for any other entity, they applied for it. And they are all now coming into India. Similarly, pharmaceuticals. The other very interesting thing which is happening, and this will be the last one which I'll speak about, is about creating clusters. I have 3,400 industrial clusters in India. The government is now working to upgrade these clusters. Why? A small MSME can now come in, or a big boy also can just plug and play. You remember I told you 14 months, 23 days? That is the objective. You do it much shorter. And when you have the MSMEs and the supply chains moving, and for my own supply chains, my own MSMEs, that is where the strength of India will take it on from now. And let me share with you my last point. What I am sure and I'm completely committed on to tell you. The moment we walk out of this virus, one, I look at our coming out of it as a sharp U, between a V and a sharp U. That means within the next 12 to 24 months, you see India back on the track. And not just me, IMF and the World Bank said it, 8.8% growth is what they're expecting from India. We'll be the fastest again in the world. But I'll tell you where this growth is now going to be led from and what will be the big change. The big change here is that you remember the other underlying trend before COVID, which was there, that work from home concept. This COVID has now amplified that work from home concept. Work from home means work from anywhere. And the big digitization initiative taken by the Honorable Prime Minister Modi has now come to fore to bring the entire strength of India together. For the first time in our history, you will see a complete democratization of access to opportunity, access to capital, access to market, access to incentives, all riding on that digitization. What does that mean? That means that the engine of growth of India, as soon as we move out of this COVID, is going to move beyond those 14 or 15 urban centers and will go down to the small towns and villages of India. The new India emerging out of this virus is going to be bottom up. It is going to be powered by that amazing innovation and frugal innovation of my MSMEs and my startups. And there was one example in these past 200 days which will show you what the new India will be. On the 30th of March, when we had this lockdown, you did not have a single PPE in India. On the 30th of July, you have a run rate of 1 million PPEs in India, including ventilators, and not just enough only for us, but we are exporting to the entire world, including Europe and the US. And who did this? This was my startups. These were my MSMEs who pivoted their business models fast, who knew what innovation and frugal innovation is, who joined hand with the larger companies and created all these for you. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the strength of India. And this is the strength which will take you on to be one of the top 3 economies of the world in the next 10 years. The GDP and Karnataka is going to play a critical role in that. You have a GDP today of 230 to 250 billion. Karnataka is probably as big as Vietnam. You mentioned Vietnam, Chetan. That is the size of Karnataka. And Karnataka is growing faster than Vietnam. Karnataka's GDP is growing anywhere closer to a double-digit figure soon enough. That means on an annual level, you will be adding $20 to $25 billion to the bottom lines of all those companies which are working with you in Karnataka. You think any other country can even match it on the ones which you mentioned? And this is just one state which I have of Karnataka. Karnataka today has a very interesting thing. You have 64% which comes from services. You have about 26 coming from manufacturing. You have about 10 to 12 coming from agriculture. Service economies will bounce back much faster. So your recovery will also be much faster. And here I must also compliment, we've got Mr. Gowda from the Udyog Mitra, we've got the other team mentioning, and everybody else joining you from the government. I think your government has done an excellent job also. You already were one of our top 5, top 4 contributors in terms of manufacturing. You were ranked up there. But there have been some very interesting and some very promising policies which have been announced, especially one to attract MSMEs where you do not require any initial approvals for the first 36 months. I must also say that the other interesting element of India today is that each of my states is now chugging faster and competing with their own selves, not just with others, to make them one of the most friendly places for investors. And I'm seeing that across all my 28 states and my special 8 union territories. And what is the other interesting thing happening? That states are helping each other come up that curve. I know, for example, Karnataka partnered with Himachal, with Uttarakhand, with Bihar to help them also initiate policies and initiate investor-friendly manner to get businesses. And that is how you've seen Uttarakhands of the world and Himachal of the world jump up exponentially in their ease of doing business rankings in India. This is the strength of India. I do want to let you know there'll be a new India which is waiting, and we are all on the threshold of it. And it's a new world we are all wanting to jump into now. So thank you for inviting me. There's a lot happening, and please, anything we can do at any point of time, my entire team is there to help. Thank you, Chetan, and thank you for getting us together.
Thank you, Deepak ji, for this wonderful talk, and really thanks for giving us a good inside view of how Invest India is actually functioning today, how industry-friendly role that you're playing. See, one of the main grievances that the investors have always had is nobody doubts India's potential in terms of its resources, in terms of its people, various things. It's about difference between the policy and implementation. That has always been the challenge in the past. But it's very, very heartening to know that Invest India has stepped in to play the role where an investor is treated with warm welcome in terms of actually guiding them in terms of all the regulations, playing as a single window for their various regulatory compliances, also expediting a lot of issues. As you all know, one of the biggest problems faced by the investors when you want to do on large scale is the land acquisition. And the fact that now we are heartening to know again the single window clearances, which is actually guiding the investors to look at the various land parcels that are available so that they're able to kind of identify that suits them and to get going. I think that's a wonderful initiative. Even in the state of Karnataka, similar initiatives are being taken. So that's a really nice thing to do. Also, sir, it's very nice to know that you tend to get a different view when you read the media and the kind of negativity that gets built, saying that India is losing steam in terms of attracting investments into India from what's happening due to the pandemic. But really, after hearing you and hearing specifically in terms of the potential investors that is lined up to invest in India, you talked about 578 investors who have met you in the last 12 months with a potential of 68 billion. See, none of these information actually comes out in public, in terms of things. It's always projected that India is losing, and India in terms of, is losing out to other countries like the Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia, Bangladesh. But very, very nice to know the kind of work that you have been doing, you and your team has been doing to plug the gap. In fact, we all know that that's the gap, but really good to know that under the leadership of Mr. Modi, a team like yours is in place to help the investors to really feel welcome and invest in the country. Thank you, sir, for sharing these deep insights into the work. Thank you so much. So the next program, as I said, was to have Shri Gaurav Gupta, IAS Principal Secretary, to talk about his thoughts on how government of Karnataka has been doing in terms of promoting manufacturing sector in the state. But as we've informed you earlier, he's joining us a bit late. It will take about maybe around 12 noon is when he's expected to join. So what we will do now is we can get into the panel discussion with the speakers who are with us right now. And the focus would be more on the FDI manufacturing in Karnataka. So as Mr. Bagla ji had mentioned very well, as what the Karnataka's role has been and will be going forward in the context of the nation's GDP, Karnataka is definitely one of the leading industrial states in the country, and it holds the 5th rank in terms of the GDP in the country. And in terms of exports, we all know IT is being the flagship in terms of exports. So they continue to be India. Karnataka continues to be the largest exporter of software. We also be the 2nd largest chip design hub in the country. We are the 4th largest automobile manufacturers in the country, 4th largest contributor to electronics output. We are also the leaders in ready-made garments, gems and jewelry, petrochemicals and engineering goods. And also we have a very vibrant agro processing industry, aerospace, biotech, and many number of other industries. So also, as Ms. Bagla was saying, there's a lot of positive thing that's coming out of companies trying to set up their R&D centers in the country outside their corporate offices. And Karnataka is one of the major beneficiaries. So Karnataka has the largest R&D centers in the country. So that's a great thing, because with R&D, your design, your innovation starts growing. You're just not doing the manufacturing or the back-end job, but you're also getting into innovation and design. So that's a great opportunity for us. And also, the government of Karnataka has in the past also set up SEZs to specifically focus on industry-specific sectors, be it IT, be it biotech, be it engineering goods, be it food processing. So there has always been a continuing thrust on giving manufacturing a very important status in the state's economy. And to just continue the thing, we have had an export of almost $17.38 billion in financial year 18-19, with a total aggregate of $40 billion over the last 19 to 20 years. Karnataka has contributed towards the exports of India. And Karnataka ranks the third in the FDI in the country, with almost having received about $40 billion again over the last 19 years. I would also like to take this opportunity to quickly give some snapshots of some of the leading industries and how these industries have fared relatively in terms of other states in the country. Now, textiles, 20% of the India's garments are produced in the state of Karnataka. We contribute almost 15% of the export earnings. And also our textile manufacturing is 5% of the global garments and ready-made production happens in the state of Karnataka. Besides that, we all know about automobile, with the Toyotas, they are one of the leading automobile manufacturing company in the state of Karnataka. Today, we have 7 major OEMs. We have almost 50 plus auto components manufactured in the state. In terms of engineering and machinery, machine tools, we are the second highest producer of special purpose machinery as well as heavy electrical machinery in the country. 60% of the machine tools in terms of value is produced in the state of Karnataka. In terms of agro processing, we have almost 75% of the flour production happening in the state. We have almost 70% of the country's coffee production taking place in the state. We have almost 47% of the silks is being produced in the state. So huge amount of contribution by the state of Karnataka. 7 major food parks are there in the state, 1 spice park and 1 seafood park. Besides that, electronics is another very, very high growth sector that we see. And electronics, Karnataka has the second largest chip design hub in the country, and 70% of the chip designers are actually located in our country, in our state. So as you all know, aerospace, HAL, which is our flagship, is also located in the state of, majorly in the state of Karnataka. 65% of the aerospace investments is happening in the state of Karnataka. And the government has created about 405 hectares of aerospace park in Devanagowda. And it's the first state in the country to come out with an aerospace policy. So you can well imagine the kind of efforts that is being put up by the state or by the government of Karnataka to really push manufacturing in the state. Having said that, there are still very many issues when you actually come to the brass tacks or the ground level, which the government is continuously working towards to address those issues. And we shall use today's discussions to understand further what are the opportunities that we have in our state, as well as challenges that are actually faced by the industries, because we have representatives from the industries. I'm sure they will share with us their experiences of some of the challenges that they're facing today. And so I would like to now begin my Q&A session first by introducing our panel members for today's discussion. I would like to begin with Mr. Revannagowda, who is the Managing Director from Karnataka Udyog Mitra. As you all know, Karnataka Udyog Mitra is a government of Karnataka organization which is constituted under the aegis of the Commerce and Industries Department. Karnataka Udyog Mitra is an initiative from the state to promote and facilitate investments and assist investors. Udyog Mitra is a single point of contact for all investors who are looking at setting up businesses in the state. As a nodal agency, its role is to facilitate investments and execute initiatives to enable smooth transition from receiving an investment proposal to actually implementation of the project. Thank you, Mr. Gaurav, for joining us today, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, we have with us Mr. Vikram Gulati, who is the Country Head and Senior Vice President with TKM, currently working as Country Head and Senior Vice President at Toyota Kirloskar Motors. He's a postgraduate in chemistry from St. Stephen's College, Delhi University, and holds a management degree from the Management Development Institute, Gurgaon. Earlier, while serving as a civil servant, IRPS 1992 batch, he has had a rich and varied experience of over 22 years working in government departments under various capacities. This includes working in the Department of Heavy Industries, wherein one of the areas of responsibility was the automotive sector, and in that capacity, he was involved actively in shaping the Electric Mobility Initiative and framing of National Electric Mobility Mission Plan 2020. Sir, welcome, sir. We also have with us Mr. MC Dinesh, who is a first-generation entrepreneur and one of the most well-known printers in Bangalore. Vimala Impressions is not only an exemplary example of entrepreneurial success, but also he's been a father figure for people connected to the industry and has a dedicated life. He's dedicated his life to the development of Karnataka's trade, industry, and service sectors. Dinesh has an enviable track record as an advocate of industry and trade, first as a president of Karnataka Small Scale Industries Association, and later as the president of the Federation of Karnataka Chambers of Commerce and Industry, FKCCI. Currently, he continues to be actively engaged with representatives of industry and trade and as past president of FKCCI. Welcome, Mr. Dinesh.
Thank you.
And the last speaker, the last person in the panel is Mr. H.S. Nikhila, who is a BE and MBA Finance. He is a second generation entrepreneur from Bangalore. He's the MD of Presitech Precision Machinery Private Limited. He's a technocrat. He leads a company which specializes in design and manufacture of custom-built sophisticated CNC and automotive machine tools for aerospace, defense, nuclear, heavy engineering, automobile industries. He has been instrumental in designing many challenging machine tools indigenously and have built some of the largest machine tools built in India, including the country's largest lathe. He's the president of Bangalore Machine Tools Manufacturers Network. Welcome, Mr. Nikhila. So let's begin our Q&A session with my first question to Mr. Gowda. Basically, before we go there, it's about sir, we would like to understand from you the new industry policy that the government, new Karnataka Industrial Policy 2025, which the Karnataka government in July 2020 has come out with a new policy. We would request you to take about 2 minutes as an opening remarks to share with us what are the key initiatives that the government has taken under the new industrial policy. How does it impact or support the FDI in Karnataka, sir?
Yeah, thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. I take this opportunity to convey my thanks to Mr. Deepak Bagla ji for his comments on the steps the state government has taken to improve the industrial environment in the state. I also want to mention that Karnataka is the first state to introduce a single window system. The single window system in the state was introduced in the year 1991, when no other state was thought of the system. And we are the even first to introduce the industrial policy, first state to introduce the industrial policy in the country. Chetanji has already explained the Karnataka's commendable position in all the sectors. But in terms of FDI, he quoted us as in the third position, but we are in second position now. The state has attracted more than 64,000 crore investment. And we are number one as of now in terms of IEM filing as per the DPIIT data. Even during the COVID period, we have attracted 53,000 crores of investment, and we top the list in the country. As far as our industrial policy is concerned, the policy we to attract FDI to the state. Our government has taken several effective steps. We have sectoral policies. For each sector, we have a policy. And the government has set up a Japanese industrial township in 500 acres of land near Tumkur. This is specific to Japanese industries. There is also a sector-specific machine tool park in 300 acres of land in Tumkur. We have independent sector policies for textile, agro, food processing, electric vehicle. Electric vehicle also I want to mention, we were the first to introduce electric vehicle policy. And added to this, we have undertaken regulatory reforms. The Facilitation Act of Karnataka is amended. I want to mention that we were the first to come out with an act, Industries Facilitation Act in the country. That act has now been amended. Anybody can start an MSME, and even the large and medium and large industries also can start industry without taking any permissions for 36 months. This is we are the first state to include large and medium industry in that moratorium period. This Karnataka has attracted more than from in 2015-16, our FDI count was only 25,000 crores. In 5 years, our FDI inflow is doubled now. The major investments we are getting from countries like Japan, UK, Singapore, Korea, UAE, and Sweden.
So thank you, sir. Sorry to interrupt, sir. Sir, would like to understand some specific initiatives that you have taken, sir, to actually help further FDI in the manufacturing sector. You know, you could probably talk about the Special Investment Region Act, which you're proposing to enact to promote the development of industries and to
I have already
incentives that.
Yeah, I have already mentioned one such initiative. It is a Japanese industrial township in 500 acres of land. World-class infrastructure is put in place. In addition to that, we are coming up with industrial corridors and SEZs. Tumkur, there is one Chennai Bangalore industrial corridor in about 3,500 acres.
Sure.
Yes.
Thank you, Gupta. So I would now like to move on to Mr. Vikram Gulati. We would like to understand from you, sir, how do you see, what's your views on FDI in auto sector, and more specifically, how do we look at Toyota India's roadmap for further investment into India in the auto sector?
Other than the basic requirements which have already been covered, and I think Government of India is doing a great job in lowering the transaction costs and improving logistics, etc. Automotive sector has a few very specific peculiarities. These peculiarities are around how we operate. Automotive sector comprises of large companies like Toyota, which assemble vehicles. And at the back end, you have a very long chain of auto component manufacturers at various levels, which also includes MSMEs. The second critical factor is there is a long gestation time and large investments involved. So these long gestation time for recovery of these investments. So there is and this plays out for the entire value chain. Third thing that we must recognize is that today automotive sector globally is witnessing a transition which it has never seen before. This is around connected cars, around autonomous driving, around shared mobility, around electrification, etc. So if this context is important to understand from a point of view of investment. The automotive sector, besides all the other things that have been mentioned around investment enablers, also needs regulatory and policy framework, which is aligned to global framework. You see, regulations, particularly safety, emission, etc., are critical to how products are designed. And since you have a long gestation time, and since India should be becoming an export hub, two things are necessary. One, our regulation should be aligned to global levels so that we can manufacture seamlessly, not only for the domestic market, but for the global market. Second, the regulation should be set up in next 8 to 10 year time horizon, which is done globally, nothing new. And we are also attempting to do that. And there should be no change in regulations once set, because this disrupts the entire investment calculation and makes it much more riskier. The other point that we see is very rightly mentioned, although the automotive sector globally is globally distributed supply chain, there is some rechurning happening because of COVID. But here we are competing against many other countries like Thailand and other ASEAN countries. So we need to benchmark the policies, our policies with them to make sure that we are more competitive. Going forward from a point of view of the technology shift that's taking place, we have to make sure we do not become dependent on imports. We do not become dependent on China, which is the dominant player in electrified vehicle technologies right now in terms of manufacturing. For that, we have to make sure the components for electric vehicles are manufactured in the country. For this, investment viability is essential, for which scale is necessary. Government has done tremendous work, both Karnataka government as well as Government of India, for encouraging demand. But demand is going to pick up because consumer acceptance becomes the key determinant. So there, what globally every country did, including China in the beginning, was to aggregate demand across all electrified vehicle technologies, which includes a hybrid, plug-in, etc. Because all these technologies have the same electric powertrain with common parts. That's how. And since hybrids are much easier acceptable to consumers, they have much less challenges, investments becomes viable. As far as Toyota is concerned, we've always seen India as one of our key markets for our global strategy. We entered into India almost 22 years ago. We have been deeply committed in building a sustainable, strong ecosystem within the country. We have focused on developing not only our capabilities here in India, but the capabilities of the entire supply chain. That is critical because skilling and process enhancement is key to being competitive. At the end of the day, you have to be globally competitive. Just to give you an example, we annually spend 48,000 man hours in upgrading the processes and skilling of our suppliers. This is an investment we are making to make our supply chain globally competitive. And this year onwards, we'll be expanding this to also include tier 2, tier 3, even MSMEs, where, because if they become competitive, you also become competitive. So skilling and process sharpening is something we've been focusing on. Going forward, I think a lot of people would have heard about our alliance with Suzuki, which is a global alliance, but particularly relevant for India. What Toyota believes is that electrification or shift towards electric and other electrified vehicle technologies like hybrid will not make much difference unless it becomes mass. So mass electrification is what we are attempting to do, meaning making an electrified vehicle technology, whether it is a strong hybrid or an EV, as common as a petrol and diesel vehicle today. Now, in order to do that, we are fully committed for doing this by making in India. Hence, you would have heard that already our partner Suzuki and one of our group companies, Denso, have jointly set up a battery manufacturing plant in Gujarat. Some days back, I think Mr. Kirloskar would have announced along with our MD that 2,000 crore rupees investments happening now this year towards this particular objective. While capacity is not being expanded because there is a constraint right now, but investments for a future that is shifting towards mass electrification is what we are attempting to do. And not only for meeting the Indian market requirements, but for global requirements. So in brief, this is what we've been doing. This is our thinking. And we believe globally, since consumer acceptance is going to be critical, Europe shows that the acceptance for electrified vehicles cuts across technologies, whether it's a strong hybrid or an EV. That's how it is going to be everywhere. Hence, we are focused on setting electrified vehicle technology based upon consumer requirements, whether it's a BEV, whether it's a pure electric, or whether it's a strong hybrid, but definitely shift away from technologies as fast as we can, because that is the national requirement. Thank you.
Thank you, Vikramji. I'll come back to you with a few follow-up questions once I go through the round of speakers. Thank you, sir. I'd now like Mr. Nikila to comment on, see, Karnataka is one of the key states in machine tools and engineering industry. What's your view in terms of the prospects for FDI in production of machine tool subsystems in India, Mr. Nikila?
Chetanji, sorry to intervene. I can see Gaurav Gupta ji has also joined, so just a welcome to him.
Oh, okay.
Welcome,
okay.
Sir. Yeah, Chetanji, sorry to interrupt.
Hello.
Carry on.
Hello and good afternoon to all.
Sir, good afternoon, sir. I'm Chetan Venugopal and a hearty welcome to today's session.
I'm so sorry I was held up in another program, but thank you for accommodating me at 12 as requested. And I look forward to a very productive discussion with all the panelists and the participants in the Bhartiya Vitta Salahkar Samiti, Bangalore, and the program on foreign direct investment in manufacturing. Sure. May I start? Should I carry on, or would you like to say a little bit in the context part? What would you like me to speak?
Yeah, sure, sir. Again, thank you for joining us. And we were just in the midst of the panel discussion, but we had actually set the thing saying that once you're here, you would take a break for you to kind of enlighten us with what are the initiatives that the government of Karnataka has been taking up in order to promote manufacturing in the country, in the state, especially the FDI. You know, you could kindly enlighten us about the new industrial policy 2025, as well as a special investment region act that is, very soon to be enacted. And based on this, how do you see that promoting manufacturing in the state, specifically the FDI in the manufacturing sector?
Yeah, so let me start by saying that we are indeed privileged to have industry leaders with us who have actively been contributing towards the kind of foreign direct investment that we have had so far. So Karnataka is perhaps the most integrated with the world economy. And when I say so, I say it knowing fully well the fact that if we are looking at into the IT and IT enabled services and the startup sector, and whether it is global manufacturing, like for example, Shri Gulati mentioned about the Toyota, or we may have any other aerospace sector, or the machine tool sectors, or even the pharma and the biotechnology. We are integrated with the world. We are not producing just for Karnataka. We are not producing for our own domestic consumption. We are not producing just for India's consumption. We are basically producing to the world's requirement. And very happy to mention that perhaps Karnataka is the state in which almost each and every person can recall a person in their own family or a neighborhood who would be, working in a multinational company, or who would be, in an Indian company which is working for operations abroad. And also people who have been perhaps living abroad and sending remittances back in Karnataka. So the entire society perhaps is geared up, and entire, the ecosystem is like that it is geared up for integration with the global economy. So what we have been doing so far to promote this, one thing is that we are very actively working with all the global companies and also the Indian conglomerates to see what is their expansion plans. We are slowly, the world is becoming a global village. And so therefore, every person is basically looking at opportunities abroad and how to see that if the domestic demand, say for example, is not very strong, can you have some kind of support from the global markets? And I'll cite an example of, say, Hyundai or Volvo or a number of other people. They are banking on domestic demand. But if the domestic demand slackens, they start exporting. Perhaps the delegates know very well. It's a very learned panel. And I believe all of you know that there are so much of our auto-related exports which are happening to Africa and particularly to South Africa. And that is happening from number of global majors that are present here. So, what we are doing is we are actively working with them to see what is their expansion plans. Toyota, for example, set up the Toyota car engine manufacturing unit here, which is perhaps the third in the world to be set up here after Japan, Thailand, and then in Karnataka in Bangalore. And they are looking at how they can be manufacturing here as well as exporting. Likewise, Apple manufacturing, for example, is being taken up by Wistron. Now they are looking at not only for Indian demand, but also they are looking at exports. And that is the reason why they started up a trial plant and then took it forward. So as I said, one is that we are looking at Indian and global companies that are present here and how they can expand, and very, very good responses from them. They all know. I was talking to the Swiss companies some time back. We were talking to the Germans and the Japanese and a number of other companies, and we are working with all the the country specific organizations, the industry and trade organizations, and we would like to assure them that we are taking up measures to see how there could be ease of doing business. Very often there is a global companies not having as much of comfort in terms of cultural differences. Japanese companies, Korean companies and all that, they find it difficult, and we'd like to handhold them. Only 2 days back, we had a meeting with the Japanese companies on this regard. We are working with Taiwanese companies, also Korean companies also, and all these people are continuously in touch with us. So we would like more and more integration, and very happy to mention that whichever Swiss companies, for example, we interacted with, that was about 3 days back, all of them are saying that they would like to expand in Karnataka. Now, we have to make the conditions amenable to them. So it may be issues of land. Procurement of land in Karnataka has always been a little difficult. Fortunately, we have had very progressive measures by the state government in making it easier to procure land. Likewise, a lot of measures have been taken which enable procedural simplification. Almost all our permissions now are being given on an online basis, including, say, for example, for land conversion, for building plan approval, including, say, for example, getting electricity connection and things like that. We are also working to see even how the judicial cases can be handled on an online basis by setting up commercial courts, which can, handle the disputes, and they can be e-filing of these cases and e-summons and judgments which you can download and directly from the net. There could be hearings, etc., which could be held in a virtual court. Now, all these issues are there in which we would like comfort level at the level of the foreign investors. And I would also like to mention that there is a lot of investments that are happening at the convergence of manufacturing and services. So a lot of things which were perhaps being done on a manufacturing basis are being done now on basically software and such other cases. Bosch, for example, is changing a lot of their physical devices which were basically spark plugs, etc. They have now converted into electronic solutions, and then thereafter there will be something which will be software solutions, etc. also. So all of this are changes that are being brought about. IBM and Intel and GE and number of others, they are developing solutions which are based on AI and IoT. Now, these are all places where Karnataka has a very, very distinct edge because we have the best of the software and best of the manufacturing also, and the convergence of that is possible. Whether you call it aerospace industry or automobile industry, that is again very, very important. Whether we call it advanced manufacturing, which may be industry 4.0, etc. So these are wide spectrum of sectors in which Karnataka has been present, whether it is manufacturing, whether it is services, whether it is research and development. We have the best of the leaders in industry, and we would like to bring more as well. So we are reaching out to almost 100 global companies to see how we can fit into their expansion plans. You must have heard of Tesla. Likewise, there are a number of other companies also we are interacting with. Number of them would not like us to reveal their names, and we would not like to do so. But we would like more and more companies to come up. Particularly if you are looking at manufacturing, the Japanese companies and the Korean companies, etc., they are very good at manufacturing, and we are closely in touch with them. A Korean company which is coming forth readily comes to mind in this sector, in the cutting tools sector, is YG1, with which we are interacting. We would also like to set up build to suit kind of facilities or plug and play kind of facilities, depending on the requirements. We do have a Japanese industrial township, which I think all of us know, with specifically designed infrastructure, including concrete roads, including the conduit pipes, etc., for utilities and all that, built as per their requirements. Likewise, Taiwanese companies, etc., they are there. So we would like more and more to conclude, to happen. And to conclude, I would like to thank the BVSS team for giving an opportunity to address this forum. We would like to hear more from you. One of the very redeeming features of Karnataka is that we listen to the people around us, and whether it be industry leaders, whether it be thought leaders like your organization, and it's only when we learn from you that we can take it forward. A very important suggestion which came up recently, which is announced in the budget also, and industrial policy also, is the special investment region, which we are trying to set up in northern part of the state. One around Hubli Dharwad, another in the Kalyan Karnataka region, and these will be areas which will be specially developed, keeping in mind what is the best practices in the world. So likewise, manufacturing, we would like it to be diversified beyond Bangalore. We would like Tumkur, say for example, has come up as a special node under the national infrastructure corridors, etc. 10,000 acres of land is being developed in coordination with the government of India, and this would have the most advanced of the logistics facilities, the electricity and such other utilities, etc. And we hope and expect that this will be the largest of the planned townships across India to happen. We have also been looking at Bangalore, Mysore, Hassan, and number of other places. In the northern Karnataka part, Koppal, for example, is coming up as a major toys hub. We are planning a fast mover consumer goods cluster in Dharwad, and also there's a talk of a consumer durables cluster also. And there's a pharma park intending to be developed in Yadgir district of Karnataka, which is in the Kalyan Karnataka region. So there is a lot of developments that are going on. We hope to interact, and I would look forward to hearing from you. If there are any specific queries, I will be very happy to answer them. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So thank you so much for giving us so many insights into what the state of Karnataka's government has been taking up. Really good to know that, as we all know, IT has been the flagship for us, information technology, but the government is also now focusing on various other sectors to ensure that there's an equal growth of other sectors and the initiatives that is being taken up. It's very heartening to know the steps that's being taken up. Also very heartening to note that one of the grouse that is there is that a lot of industries is situated in and around Bangalore, and it is important that we move some of them, at least the new investments, to other regions of the state, so that there's a uniform development of other parts. And it's good to know that in the Special Investment Region Act, you're ensuring that there is a disbursement of industries across the state and not just in Bangalore. So these are some of the things that we can clearly see as some of the focus areas of the government in terms of promoting the manufacturing sector. I will come back to you, sir, with some of the follow-up questions. I will now just move to the next panelist, which is Mr. Nikhila. Nikhila, we'd like to understand from you in terms of machine tools and engineering industry, what's your views in terms of the FDI that you can see as a prospect for production of machine tool subsystems in the state of Karnataka?
Yeah.
So Nikhila?
Good afternoon. Machine tools are called mother machines. Machine tools contribute a big way into our economy, and they make up the entire manufacturing setup of made in India. What we call machine tools play a very important role. So machine tools are made up primarily of number of subsystems which go into it, and they are building blocks of machines. As such, machine tool industry in India is around 20,000 crores, roughly around that. And we produce roughly about 40 to 50% of that. Say around 8 to 10,000 crores we produce indigenously, and the rest are imported. And even among the indigenously produced machine tools, Karnataka produces nearly 50%. So Karnataka is a very big producer of machine tools. And these subsystems, what is used in machine, are also shared by other machineries, like automation, robotics, textile, printing, you name them, any kind of machinery we use in production, share a lot of these common subsystems like precision bearings, ball screws, hydraulics, servo drives, servo motors, and controls. Of course, CNCs are certain things, there are specific machine tool systems, but there are also broader systems which are employed by all other machineries. So day by day, the machine tool is quite complex. They integrate many types of subsystems, right from IoT, controls, to whatever we traditionally do, the structures, the bearings, the part of the machine tool, spindles, the entire machine tool building activities, where integrated activity where many subsystems are brought together to make them completely workable, reliable, and truly world-class today. So Bangalore, as explained, being at the center of building machine tools, has got a huge market. Apart from that, with the Made in India concept, we can really truly attract the building blocks of machine tools to be made in India, because we have the right talent. And it would also help the Indian industry to grow further, because machine tools, there are two, one is the major machine tool manufacturers who build machines in numbers, and they specific on the mass requirements. This comes to roughly about 40-50% of the requirement, but the balance is quite fragmented because they are niche. They require very specific application areas and some customization and application oriented specific machines might be required. As the industries grow, the availability of these subsystems indigenously would help them a lot to make indigenous machine tools, and the whole industry to grow. We can attract more and more primary machine tool manufacturers who build complete machines into the country once we have these kind of subsystems, and they make a very integral portion of the machine tools. So, like, I think in Karnataka, we already have, as Gupta ji said, like tools like YG1 is new company, but Agutech, Vitta, many tool manufacturers are already there. We have hydraulic subsystem manufacturers. We also have Fanuc and Siemens in control systems operating in Bangalore. We have their R&D, I think, and centers also established. But coming into pure say manufacturing, yes, India still imports most of this. And they can't, even in whatever 4,000 crore of machine tool probably we produce in Karnataka, almost 40% will be imported. So this is the share of these kind of subsystems which are still being imported. So we have a huge indigenous market, and also we can be today a very good global manufacturing hub. That's what this means.
Thank you, Nicola. Really heartening to know that as well. I now request Mr. Dinesh, the past president of FKCCI. Mr. Dinesh, you being a representative from the industry side, we'd like to understand what's your take on the steps and measures that are being taken up by Government of Karnataka to promote and strengthen manufacturing sector in the state, and do you believe that the steps that are being taken would promote investment into the state? And any suggestions that you have for some of the challenges that is currently faced, especially the MSME sector, sir?
Thank you, Chetan, and good to have my good friend, Mr. Gaurav Gupta ji. Good to see you after a long time. And my association with Mr. Gaurav ji goes from the time when he used to be the commissioner and now going on to be the additional principal secretary also. Very happy to have him here. And let me first compliment the bureaucracy of Karnataka government. This has been one of the best bureaucracies where whenever I have traveled as president all over the country, people have said, how is that the industry and the bureaucracy works in such strong coordinations? That is something that I have to admire, the way the Karnataka bureaucracy has worked and always been there to help the entrepreneurs. But I'm going straight into the point as to how the FDIs which are coming into Karnataka will play a bigger role, and what role we as MSME expect from the government to, because by adding and giving us this amount of confidence will help us only to meet the requirements of the international industrialists who want to put up their plant here. There are three areas which I would like to bring it: clear policies and mechanism of monitoring and bringing on course and correction as and when there is a feedback from the industry representative, especially in industry policy. One is it has to be implemented. Second thing, in the industry it has to be monitored. And most important is the grievance redressal mechanism should be online. Because a lot, as you make a policy, there will be so many grievances. This has to be immediately looked into. For that, I would request each district should have an industry facilitation committee, a state level committee to have a statutory powers to implement the policies of the state government should be there. In Bangalore, a state level authority effectively intervene and bring in course corrections. An appointment of an industrial ombudsman to receive and dispose of the complaints within the framework of rules prescribed by the state government. This is extremely important because every time we cannot go and meet the principal secretary or the additional secretary for every complaint and grievances we have. The facilitation committee should be headed by the district in charge ministry. So it will become a collective responsibility of the bureaucrats, the industrialists, as well as the politicians to see that the state grows in tandem. Every quarter, a high-level meeting of all the concerned departments should be held under the chairmanship of the Honorable Chief Minister, and the Chief Secretary of the state should be the member secretary. A district growth plan, depending upon the resources and infrastructure facilities, like road, rail, airport, and other connectivity, including the communicating facilities, should be in place even before the investments are invited. The government should monitor effective implementation of the policies of the state government in letter and spirit. When it comes to export, the sad story in Karnataka has been we are only connected through Chennai. That's the only way which is the quickest and the fastest. I think the government of Karnataka and the Indian government has to look at how fast we could get connected to our own port like Bangalore. That has been pending for the last couple of years now, including the road has been very, very bad in the region between Bangalore and Bangalore. See, most of our exports are going to Chennai. And if there is some problem between that state, which keeps happening once in 3-4 years on those issues, we are stuck. And I think as president, I've gone through these problems and Mr. Gaurav Gupta clearly understands that. Another important question where the MSMEs are going to find the challenges, all these people, the multinationals, the government PSUs should make sure the payments to the MSMEs come within the prescribed time, which is very, very important. And another important thing is the GST refunds. So these are important, see, because the MSMEs thrive and live on the working capital of what has been given to them. If the working capital is utilized by the PSUs and big industries, that is going to be the biggest challenge. To me, if things get faced, Karnataka is one of the most vibrant MSME sectors in this country. We will not shudder even one step to take different steps. We are there for innovating and the hand holding which the government has always come forward. It is just that policies are in fantastic shape. it has to be implemented in time and spirit. That itself is going to give us a leap for this one to go for it. If a decision is taken in a high-level committee, somebody headed by the Principal Secretary, Mr. Gaurav, when he meets the investors, he knows the capacity of the MSMEs here. Otherwise, he wouldn't be taking that type of decision. So I believe the government should make sure the implementation and the way you take forward of monitoring, and whenever there is a grievances, those have to be immediately looked into, and that will enable the MSMEs and the investors to move in tandem and come out with the desired results. This is what I believe is very, very important.
Thank you, Dinesh. I think your suggestion for setting up the grievance cell, basically to address the concerns of the business entrepreneurs to ensure that speedily they get resolved.
We should have
does not
because that man will
independent.
Every time we can't go and meet a senior bureaucrat to air our grievances. So there will be somebody who will listen to us, understand what are the challenges, and the same can be looked into. This is some of my suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. My question to Principal Secretary Shri Gupta ji. So basically, the question is regarding the see today for any success, for the success of manufacturing sector, two critical elements are very, very important. One is the energy, availability of power, and as well as logistics. Now, is there any specific focus to address these two key elements, energy and logistics, from the government side? Sir, you're on mute. Sir, you're on mute. Hello?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, we can. Yes.
Now, you mentioned about two issues. One was power. As far as the power is concerned, Karnataka is perhaps in a vantage position because in terms of renewable energy, we are by far the leader in the country. 60% of installed capacity in the state is of renewable energy. More than 12,000 megawatt, that is 12 gigawatts of power is in terms of solar and wind, etc., etc. So I would say that Karnataka renewable energy is installed capacity is more than that of the next two states combined, which is Tamil Nadu and Gujarat, etc. And in terms of thermal and hydel, etc., you know the capacity that we have. So as of now, Karnataka is in a position to, in fact, sell power to the neighboring states. And I believe that we have already tried to contract power sales to neighboring states also. Because our thermal power plants are already ramped down and they are not able to produce because the demand is not adequate. So it is possible that it may be because of the slack in demand because of COVID or because of slack in demand because of any other reason. But let me assure you that the power is definitely, we enjoy a surplus position as of now. And so therefore, that's not of a concern. The issue in power sector is of two nature. One is that the cost of power is a little high, and that we need to brought down. We are interacting with the Karnataka Electricity Regulatory Commission so as to see that that happens. At least for the new firms, it happens. The second thing is there are distribution issues at some levels. Now, the distribution issues that we are seeing is local in nature, and I have been talking to several of the districts to see that how these problems could be sorted out. For example, it could be district of Tumkur or district of Belgaum, or it could be Ramnagara or any other place. So these issues are there. But But let me assure you that these issues are, we are constantly interacting with the highest level people in the government, and we would definitely circumvent and get over the distribution issues as well. So there was another issue, I think, Chetan Venugopal, you were mentioning. I think missed out the second part.
Logistics, sir. Logistics.
Yeah, in terms of logistics, again, Karnataka is blessed with one of the best airports in the country. Bangalore airport and the cargo operations therefrom are very critical and vital for a number of sectors. IT and IT enabled services, for example, for quick movement of experts around the globe, best of the connections. Then cargo in terms of agriculture exports, in terms of pharma exports, etc. Cool chain, cool port, etc. That has been in terms of highways, also, Mr. Dinesh is about concern. I think some other. Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir. Please continue, sir. Please continue, sir. I think there is some connectivity issue. Yes, slightly. I think there is some connectivity issue.
One of the issues is how we can have.
Sir, I think there is some connectivity issue, sir. I'll come back to you, sir. There is some connectivity issue at your side. We'll come back to you, sir, shortly. I'd now like to move on to Mr. Gulati. Vikramji, this is regarding, one of the vision of our Prime Minister in terms of making India initiative was it's just not manufacturing, but an end-to-end, like where you have in India as a center for design, prototyping, innovation, and then manufacturing. So from that perspective, how do you see Toyota specifically looking at India as a design hub as well as for prototyping its products? So sorry, Gauravji, sorry, we had some disturbance in your thing, sir. So I had to move to the next panelist. I'll come back to you.
Okay, sure.
Yes, sir. So sorry, please complete, sir. Please go ahead, sir. Please complete it.
No, I was just saying that Bangalore port connectivity is one of the issues that that we have been taking up. The Government of India and the National Highways Authority of India, we have been working at to see the Bangalore port connectivity comes up. But I am also very happy to mention that Bangalore-Chennai Express Highway is coming up, and that will reduce the distance from Bangalore to Chennai to 3 hours. And that on a greenfield alignment with a closed access highway, 4-lane or 6-lane highway, is perhaps the best thing that can happen to the southern part. Likewise, in the Belgaum and Dharwad region, the connectivity to JNPT in Maharashtra has been excellent. So these are perhaps the logistically, I think we have got very good connections to different ports. While Bangalore remains a concern that we are trying to address. There's also another talk of another deep sea port at Bellikeri in the northern part of Karnataka, northern coast of Karnataka, which is being taken up by the government, of which you will come to know soon.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Vikramji, can you kindly can you continue with that question, sir?
Sure.
Vikramji,
Thank
on
you.
the design. Yeah,
sure.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, perfectly fine. Like I mentioned in the answer to my previous question, it's, we entered Indian market 20 years ago. And when we started, a lot of stuff, in fact, most of the stuff was imported, and this was more or less an assembly operation. Over a period of time, given the commitment that we have for localization, today I'm very happy to say, for our mainline products, our degree of localization is 85%. And the parts that are not localized so far are the ones which are either not available in India or there's a quality issue. But we are working even on that. Going forward, we work in a step-by-step manner. So our first step of from a company perspective of migrating to a self-sufficient ecosystem company within country has already been achieved. We are now entering into the next phase of transiting that to newer technologies, and also now looking at a deeper involvement in terms of, like you said, designing, prototyping, etc. This is a beginning for us in this direction, since the main goal of reaching a level where we are able to localize, not only localize for the sake of localization, but localize from a perspective of being globally competitive in terms of cost as well as in terms of quality. That we have already learned, achieved, and we build up adequate capacity capability for that. Now we are working towards building similar capacity and capability for being able to take the next step, which you mentioned, is towards getting deeper R&D, deeper designing capabilities, deeper prototyping capabilities. And my own estimate is that this would be around newer technologies, as in addition to what we already do. And like I already mentioned, our ambitions on that are very high, and we see ourselves leveraging the strength of both Maruti Suzuki. They have scale, we have technology, to achieve that to make India, not only a global manufacturing hub for domestic manufacturing, but also for exports. So that's what it is.
So good to know that, so that in the future you could really expect design to take shape.
Yes, we aspire to do that.
Thank you, sir. My next question is to Mr. Nikhila. So, Mr. Nikhila, in terms of the machinery that is actually being deployed in the machine tools and engineering industry, in terms of the number of machines that are actually deployed in the engineering and machine tools industry, most of them are second-hand machines. Now, we understand the fallout of, actually using second-hand machines in terms of the outdated technology, or could be quality and those things, coming out of it. So what do you think is actually driving the industry to be using second-hand machinery? And is there some challenges that you think that could be addressed by the government, so that, from a cost perspective or import tax or whatever it is, that would help the industry to actually going for new machineries? Mr. Nikhila.
Yeah, I think my video is blocked. I am unable to unmute.
Hello?
Yeah, am I audible? Because my video is muted. Yeah,
no, your audio is fine. Mr. Nikhila, your audio is fine. Please go ahead, sir.
Coming to second-hand machines. Second-hand machines are imported for obvious reasons. First thing is they're available very cheap at very low cost, and a lot of older machines for what they were intended to build also last longer. Another major reason is they're available immediately, like you go and just pick it up what is ready and you can start deploying them. These are three major factors probably which would drive a second-hand machinery to be brought into the country. But there is a huge downside to it. First thing is the technology is totally outdated. Most of the times, some of these machines are very, very old, even 30-year-old, 40-year-old are being brought in. We cannot use any of the modern toolings. They're also inefficient in today's world, and they're quite less productive compared to whatever machines we build. They're not as productive as the modern machines. And also, we cannot get the required tech accuracies or the required performance levels what an industry would require today. And whenever somebody invests, it is also blocking a great portion of the investment into that area. Like if you're already having one machine building a parallel, these are capital investments. These are not investments where I can change something daily. We tell buying machine tools is like a marriage. Like you have to live with it once you make a capital decision. So this is a very important factor which we have to keep in mind. So there should be an active policy-driven and emphasis and proactive actions being taken to see that people go in with new machineries as far as possible. And especially we have to look into certain areas, especially if you look at smaller machine tools, why they should be imported. They are fully made in India. A whole range is being made in India. They are world class, and even we are exporting. So we should look at where they are primarily new machines are brought. If not, okay, we can import this one.
So yeah, Ms. Nikhila, one of the quick follow-up question, because we're running out of time. One of the quick, see the new investment policy in terms of the subsidy that the government of Karnataka is proposing to give based on your capital investment. You think this would be of helpful to your industry, so that you are now given that you will have some subsidy coming in based on your turnover. The incentive is based on your turnover, but limited to the value of investment in the fixed assets. So would that be helpful in terms of moving from a second-hand machinery to new machines?
Definitely, it would help in a great way. Actually, we should also, I think, when I was telling this one, the policy should also look into whether the people are investing on second-hand machines or new machines. Like a lot of things, like if you could take medium to large machines, if they have brought in the machines, are they of the latest technology? Government is now also looking at building in safety standards, the operational standards, efficiency standards, like what we have in automobile manufacturing sector also. So if we bring in these old machines, they won't meet those requirements. So there should be some barriers for that whenever they are being implemented. And this capital link subsidy scheme, if they make it very clear it's for new machines, whether imported or indigenous, then it makes it very clear that it would go in a big way in promoting this kind of new machines to be purchased. That's what I would say. And also, larger machines, you can also have one more factor on the very large machines, where we can, if the machines are brought in, because structurally some things might be good, that's what people say. So if they are brought in, then somebody can totally upgrade it to the newest levels, then only it can be implemented.
Thank you, Nikhila. Thank you, Ms. Nikhila. So my last question from a thing is to Mr. Gowda, Revannagowda. So one of the main concerns that the investors have in the state of Karnataka is Section 1.
I think Gaurav Gupta ji wanted to comment something on Nikhila ji.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that in the field of machine tools, India's only machine tool park has been taken up in Karnataka with the support of Government of India. And we have been interacting with the entire machine tool industry association to see that how domestic investors as well as international investors come in here. One of the issues is that although we have allotted to several of the industry leaders, but they have not invested as yet. And the reason they cite is because of lack of demand. So what I wanted to ask Mr. Nikhila is that do you feel that there is a slackness in demand, or is it because of any other factor that we have not seen investments happening, although the state government and the central government have worked together to ensure investment and a dedicated park is set up?
I don't have the interest statistics, but I would like to answer from the industry, perception of the industry. First thing is, this year, for last, not just before COVID, 1 year before COVID, there was a huge downturn in machine tool industry. So I think 2018-19, our total market was something around 20,000 crores, which dropped to just around 15,000 crores. A 25% downfall in a year happened to machine tool industry in 2018-19. So this was also associated, I think, largely linked to the downfall in the investment in the auto sector, because Indian machine tool industry, what we build indigenously, is mostly directed towards auto industry. So the good thing now is it is getting corrected. So a lot of other industries and all coming into India, and what has been explained here also. So many other sectors coming into manufacturing. The demand is going to grow. For example, like the mobile, what Gupta mentioned, is a mobile phone manufacturing consumes lot of machine tools. But still we are yet to meet probably the requirement of such machine tools, or the industry is supposed to still look into indigenous machine tools in these areas where they can buy Indian machine tools rather than import the machine tools they use. So there might be some interactions required, and the market is going to grow up. Now, this year again, we are looking further downtrend to compared to last year thanks to COVID situation. This industry is very, as we understand, will bounce back in next 12 to 24 months. With that, I think a lot of these investments should start coming back to the sector. That's what I think that would happen with import. National program is a very wonderful initiative, such a good initiative. And we, as cluster of machine tools, because machine tools is another thing is, it also requires a lot of skill sets to build machine tools. Karnataka is lucky to have one. And Karnataka is also, I feel that only state in the whole India, which is positive on machine tools, in the sense that we produce more than we import. That is very few, even very few countries in the world can afford it. It is one of the big plus points of Karnataka. So we have to now look ahead and bring in a lot of technologies which go ahead with machine tools, and probably the integration of local R&D facilities, because machine tools are highly R&D oriented, because people would like their production facilities to absorb and have all the latest technologies. So if we can bring in and see that the R&D portion of the machine tools is highly encouraged, and we have a good good atmosphere where, because for small and medium industries to invest more and get into these R&Ds, it would make a big sense for machine tool industries.
Thank you, Nikhil. So we are running out of time. So I'm sorry I had to interrupt. We are running out of time. And my last question is for Mr. Revannagowda. Sir, basically one of the concerns that the investors have in the state of Karnataka is the time that is taken for land conversion under Section 109. Typically, it takes about we are given to understand it takes about 9 months to a year. And by the state government's own data, what we see is that almost in the last 5 years, out of 140 proposals, almost a significant part is being held up in terms of 109. So can you please educate some of the viewers who might be here as to how they could actually expedite the process of conversion, and is there a single window who they have to reach out to get this process expedited?
Sir, recently Karnataka government has amended the Karnataka Land Reforms Act. This 79 AB is removed. Up to 108 acres, they need not go for permission. They need not seek permission under Section 109. They can directly buy the land.
Right.
So if the requirement is above 108 acres, then they need permission under Section 109. That is also simplified. They can apply to Karnataka Udyog Mitra. Whatever single window and SSLCC approval we give, those approval and GOs are deemed 109 permissions.
So if I can add to what MD Udyog Mitra was saying, so Karnataka government has taken cognizance of this and said that any approved project does not require separate 109 clearance. So if you have an approved project, you can buy land directly without bothering for 109 or agriculture, non-agriculture conversion.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. That's nice.
Conversion.
Okay, Naval, I think we are running out of time. So we have time just for about a few questions, and we have received some questions from the viewers. I would like to take at least about 3 to 5 questions depending on the time. One of the questions that we have is how do we ensure a speedy government approval for greenfield projects? Compared to other states, Karnataka takes longer time to clear the projects. This is one of the questions that is coming from our viewers. Sir, Gauravji, could you kindly address this question, sir?
So thank you so much for the question. And I think our state leaders, led by Honorable Chief Minister, have taken cognizance of the fact that while Karnataka is very good in terms of investment climate, in terms of potential, but because of issues of buying land and approvals, etc., we are a little held back. So 2 things which have been done. One thing is, any approved project, you don't require any 109 or any other downstream, and you can directly buy land. The second is that any approved project, you can start the work from next day itself. You don't need to take, building plan approval. You don't need to take any kind of land related approvals and all that. If you have plans ready, you can self-certify and you can pay fees and saying that yes, we are paying fees according to the norms laid out, and you can start. So there is no waiting for 10 days or 15 days or 30 days. You can start it next day itself.
Right. Thank you, sir. And this next question about MSME sector, I know so basically it's about benefits and concessions available to MSME sector in the state of Karnataka. So maybe from the context of the new industrial policy, sir, what additional benefits that the government is proposing to give to the MSME sector? Could you kindly enlighten the viewers on that, sir?
Now, MSME sector is always a sector which has been handled in a very, very supportive manner by the state government, and we are giving upfront capital subsidy, which is now in the present time linked into an investment promotion subsidy. So 10% of your turnover for a period of 4 to 6 years, subject to a cap, would be admissible to you. So as a subsidy. So if you have a turnover based incentive will be admissible to you based on your filing through the GST or any other suitable mechanism. Now this is a substantial relief which has come for the small industry sector. Then there are other issues regarding the technological upgradation and regarding the support in terms of facilities and services. I would like to say that a big relief is also in terms of MSCFC, which is Medium and Small Industries Enterprises Facilitation Council, which is sorting out the commercial disputes relating to receivables by the MSME. Now that has been done effectively, and we would like more and more usage of this facility so that the receivables by the MSME, which is one of the major problems, can be sorted out.
Thank you, sir. Gauravji, one more question from the panelists, which is about what is the view on Mysore-Bangalore belt being an enabler towards holistic development? There's a huge talent pool, ideal weather, proximity to water source, but the infrastructure is still under development as the 6 laning is quite slow and train connectivity needs upgradation with enhanced speed. Are there any plans?
Now, government has already taken up 6 laning of highway, but let me assure you that that the existing connectivity itself is good. There is no problem on that. Mysore airport is already functional. I think that's a big relief to people who would like to commute quickly. But also, I would say that Mysore, we are seeing great investments, not only in Mysore, but nearby areas, including Chamarajanagar and other places as well, as also in Mandya. So big investments are coming in Hassan also, on the way to Hassan also. In near Nagamagla, we are developing another industrial area. And so as far as the 6 laning goes, that is being handled by another highways department of the state, and I would not be able to say by which time it will be over. I suppose it will take 1 or 2 years. But our plans to develop this Bangalore-Mysore sector, as also sectors from Bangalore to Hassan, Bangalore to, say for example, Sira or Davangere, or Bangalore to on the Bellary road or in the Kolar road. All of them are going on very well, and we are seeing a lot of traction on this.
Sir, thank you so much for your thoughts and inputs on various questions that has come in. Naval, I think we are pretty much exhausted our time for the Q&A session. I think before I conclude, my side, I would like to really thank all the panelists for the time and for giving some very deep insights into the respective industry, as well as from the government senior officers today, Principal Secretary Gauravji and Mr. Gowdaji, for giving us their inside view of what the government is trying to do to ensure that Karnataka is going to continue to perform well and probably go up much higher than where we are. Probably we are the 4th best state in terms of manufacturing, and probably go up much higher in terms of the state ranking. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I now hand over the thing to Mr. Naval.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chetanji. I think the session, I think if we can go on for another 1 hour or 2 hours, it will not be enough, because the kind of interest that it has generated, I was looking at the inputs coming from the technical team, not only on the Zoom, but also on the other social media channels of BVSS, YouTube and Facebook. There are hundreds and hundreds of people watching this program, and many, many questions are coming in. I have just picked one before we go to the closing ceremonies. And this question is, I am requesting Gaurav Gupta ji to answer. Sir, one interesting question which has come on YouTube is, right now the government has relaxed and also inviting a lot of new units, especially in terms of compliances. We are saying you can start with your factory without, waiting for the approvals part. The question says, how about the existing setup? And what happens if tomorrow the investor comes in, he takes an existing setup through an FDI route, and later on turns out to be that the building is not fire compliant, or some other non-compliance issues relating to that. So what is the thought process in the mind of establishment to tackle with these kind of concerns, because this is one concern that could be there in the investor's mind. And related question is, for the industry that already exists in Karnataka, there are a lot of things which are happening on the lower end side. So to promote the high end manufacturing, what are the things that the government is doing, sir? If you could answer.
Two issues. One is about what happens to the old sites. Now, we know and understand that yes, we need to be compliant to various norms. I'll cite an example. Wistron company was working from a rented facility in Pina, and they shifted or they are shifting operations to Narsapura in Kolar. And the existing factory was an old factory which did not have fire clearances, etc. Now, we have handled this issue, but I would say that it is good for the industry as well as good for society if they are fire compliant. So I think these issues need to be handled on a case-to-case basis. And I would say that as far as possible, the old industry, if it is not compliant with regard to the environmental norms or the fire safety norms or the industrial safety norms, etc., I think it is in everybody's interest that they do so. As regards the other issue of advanced manufacturing, I would say that tremendous work has been done in incorporating new technologies. I have been to Mysore, say for example, and Industry 4.0 advanced manufacturing solution using the hello. Yeah. So, advanced manufacturing solutions, which include AI, IoT, and robotics, etc., have been incorporated by various companies. We hope and expect more would happen. There's a lot of foreign collaboration which is coming. German companies, for example, are very actively working on this field. They are also looking at how they can have partners within Karnataka, local partners, so as to roll out solutions. So that is one of the thrust areas. Advanced manufacturing, AI, IoT, etc., is a thrust area in the new industrial policy as well.
Well, thank you so much, sir, for your.
Navalji, before we conclude, some thoughts from Anil Sharma ji.
Yeah.
Anil ji, some thoughts from your side, sir, on today's session.
Thank you very much. First of all, it was very enlightened, and I'm really very happy to know that Karnataka, where government and industries in tandem, they are working in a very, very, I would say, a synchronized manner to ensure the economic growth of the state. But still, I have one question to Gaurav ji, if you can have time to answer that. You see, and that is on the macro level. When we attract manufacturing, and especially from MNCs, so there is always a fear that it is creating lesser employment availability. So, and then second is the connected point to the availability of the skill set. How government is addressing to do these two, if you can quickly answer this. And once again, I would say that I'm very happy to be part of this entire process. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so as regards employment goes, I think the kind of jobs being added in Karnataka in the high-end jobs by global companies is phenomenal. I was talking today morning to Mercedes-Benz Research and Development, and they have 10,000 people working. So each Mercedes-Benz, Daimler-Benz cars designed in the world has a part of India in it, and part of Bangalore in it, and part of Karnataka in it. Now, this 10,000 count is being pushed up to 20,000. And they are working as to how they can increase it further. Now, secondly, Boeing, for example, the Boeing Engineering and Research Center, which is perhaps the largest outside of US, is planning for 6,000 people to be taken up. They have already ramped up and recruited around 1,000 people even prior to COVID. And every year they are ramping it up. They are operating from various buildings, etc. So I would say any of these advanced manufacturing, research and design facilities, GE, for example, employs 10,000 people. There are a number of others which are employing more than 30,000, 40,000 people. So I would say that we shouldn't have any kind of reservation on this, and rest assured that employment will be done. Second thing is about the skill set. Karnataka is absolutely the leader in terms of the size of the talent pool. And if you are looking at the skill sets are available, and that is the reason why people are coming in. Yes, we need to upgrade the skill set, for which the companies are taking measures. The government is also taking measures. I will cite another example. Wistron company, for example, is taking up recruitment of people for their smartphone manufacturing. And I would say that close to 8 to 10,000 people have already been recruited by them. And they are looking at skilled people, but they are scouting all around Karnataka to see skills that people are available. So far, there has not been a constraint on that. But we understand that, yes, we need to have more and more skill set. And we will work with all the relevant players to ensure that the skill upgradation program gets taken up, so as to see our young people, our youth, are able to measure up to the requirements of the global companies.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Now, may I request Radhika ji to quickly summarize the discussions, and then we'll go for formal vote of thanks.
Thank you, Navalji. Really, it was a very good discussion, and happy to hear that there will be definitely a diversification of investment for the district level, which was the aim of the government of Karnataka, and also taking up industrial clusters. This was talked about by Deepak ji, and we also find that in the strength of Karnataka has been highlighted by all the panelists and all the speakers, and therefore, so today we know that why Karnataka is attracting so much of FDI in India. It has been a leading state which is attracting FDI. And various questions, that the challenges that has been faced by the companies and the industry as such has been addressed by the government. It is so, we are happy that it has been taken up by the government, and the government has been very helpful for the growth of industry in Karnataka. And this is one more aspect is competitiveness has been, there has been a lot of steps to increase the competitiveness of the companies and the industry as such. And one important aspect which I think has not been addressed is the subsystems in the machine tool industry. And I hope that the Karnataka government will take up this in the near future. And we find that I think that we will be looking forward for more and more FDI in Karnataka in the near future. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Radhika ji, to present a quick summary. Before we go to the conclusion of this program, I would like to formally thank our chief guest of today, Shri Gaurav Gupta ji. Despite his very busy schedule, he had meetings, he had to reshuffle few things, but still he made time for us. So thank you so much, sir, because your presence made it a lot of interaction, and I could find that during the discussion itself, a lot of things that were already being done by the government were not known to the audience, and they have come out during this discussion. I would also like to thank Mr. Deepak Bagla ji, who initially he gave his note on how India is progressing and how India's future is so bright. It was a really very good start and motivating start for the session. I thank our eminent and very esteemed panelists today, Shri Vikram Gulati ji from Toyota, Shri Nikhila ji representing the machine tool industry, Shri MC Dinesh ji representing FKCCI,
Thank you.
MSME, and Mr. Gowda, who actually helped us in conceiving this program when we were actually preparing for it. And I would also like to acknowledge Shashank Agrawal ji is a good friend of mine. He's the chairman of Northern India Regional Council. He's also there with us today. Thank you for your presence, despite not having the great health right now, Shashank ji. And I also thank audience for such a great comments and questions, very interesting questions they have come up. I think Chetan ji, being a moderator, tried to address most of your questions, but if some people have not been able to get their answers, please feel free to send an email to us and we'll try to get those answers back to you on email. At last, but not the least, I would like to request all of you to know more about BVSS activities and join us in case you find any of those activities interesting for you. We'll be welcoming you with very open hands. So thank you so much, everyone. And most importantly, Chetan ji, you moderated it very, very well. And technical team which has supported the entire discussion in a great manner. So thank you, everyone, and have a very good weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Namaskar.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ritika?